Because I tell her she has the hot side of the couch.
Hello, everybody. So we're going to begin, as we always do, but this time with greater sense of urgency with our chapter of Tehillim. We still hold out hope that there'll be survivors, and there are survivors. In the collapsed building in Surfside, Florida. So please join me, friends. Chapter 120. Shir Amali Sel Adonai Batzaroseli Korosi V'Yaneni Adonai Atzila Nafshi Misras Shekem Meloshen Demiyah. Mi'itin Lachom Ha'yisif Lach Loshen Demiyah Chitze Giber Shnunim Im Gachler Esamim Oyelik Yigarti Meshech Shachanti Mali Kedar Rabbas Shach Nala Nafshi Im Sin Shalom Yisholem V'chi Adaber Heim Ala Milchama. And tzedakah. We have a son who lives in Surfside. He actually heard the collapse of the building last night at 1:30 in the morning. Amongst the missing, unaccounted for, is an old friend of mine and his wife. They're originally from Sydney. Well, he's from Sydney. She's actually a Montreal girl, the wife. And they live in Florida. They'd moved recently to that apartment building. Still unaccounted for. It's now in the scorching heat 2 days later. We still continue to pray. Friends, Sunday, I want to tell you, is a fast day. It's a national fast day. It's the 17th day of Tammuz, and Sunday begins the saddest period in the Jewish calendar. It's a period known as the 3 weeks, because it begins with a fast day, this Sunday, and concludes 3 weeks from now on another fast day, the saddest day in the Jewish year, Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of Av. There are no weddings during this time, as I'm sure you're aware, and as we get closer to the 9th of Av, it becomes virtually a Shiva, a national Shiva. The 9th of Av itself is a day of Shiva. We all sit lowly on the ground. We no more leather shoes, but it's much more than a Shiva. We're fasting and bathing for pleasure, and a host of other restrictions are in force, are observed. It's not like we're told, you can't eat today. It's more like, who can eat? When we ponder the tragedies, I'm not going to list them, but Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, throughout our history, is a long list of national tragedies that occurred on the same day. That's 3 weeks from Sunday. Sunday is the 17th of Tammuz. Our sages tell us 5 tragedies happened recurring on the same day in history. I won't mention all of them. I'll just mention the first and the last of the 5 tragedies. The first one, this was the day, Sunday was the day when Moses broke the tablets, 3,333 years ago, finding the Jews worshiping the golden calves so soon after the giving of the Torah, the revelation of God at Sinai. On the same day, the Babylonians breached the walls collapsed. This is this Sunday, that surrounded Jerusalem during the time of the first temple. And then almost 600 years later to the day, we have the exact year, it's 570 years later to the day, the same day the Romans breached the walls of Jerusalem and destroyed the second temple on Tisha B'Av, 3 weeks later, after bitter fighting and carnage and the slaughter of millions of Jews during the Second Temple. Both, what you're hearing is both the First Temple and Second Temple, 570 years apart, were destroyed in the same day. And both temples, the walls of Jerusalem, were breached, crumbled on the same day. That's the 17th of Tammuz, that Sunday. We are, as a people, we're in a state of shock and disbelief. There was Miron, Lag BaOmer, only 2 months ago. 45 lost their life in essentially a faultily designed structure. And then there was a collapse of a structure in Jerusalem a few weeks later. And now this in Surfside. So here's the thing, my dear friends. Although no one is qualified to say, as the prophets of old did, as our Rabbi would say, what it is specifically that we need to repair. Because the response to tragedy, the Jewish response, listen to these words of Maimonides. This is what he says. Shocking words. He says, when a tragedy befalls the people, to respond with, well, this is life and things happen and there are buildings that will collapse and it's the natural order and it happens. It's a random, terrible event and things like this happen. If that's the response, says Maimonides, then we are cruel. That's what he says. That is a cruel, indifferent response because we're rendering their deaths meaningless. Life is meaningful, and so is death. And we have to allow ourselves to be affected, moved in the practical sense, ultimately, to do something. So I'm just going to say this, friends. The structure, it's been a series of structures that have collapsed. 17th of Tammuz, we're mourning the breaching of the walls of Jerusalem. We need to look at our own structures. Our family structure, community structure, and see what needs to be fixed and repaired. Borders are healthy. You know what borders mean? Respect. In today's Parsha, it's one of the most amazing stories. The story is the Jews were about to enter the promised land. The 40 years in the desert, it's over. And they've defeated 2 mighty kings on their way to the promised land who refused them passage. The Jews didn't want to engage in war with them. They said, just please allow us to pass through. We will not veer from the highway. We will pay for our food and drink. You'll benefit economically from us. We just want to go home. This is under Joshua. Moses is actually still leading this. It's just leading them to the border. And 2 mighty kings resist. The Jews have no choice. The Jews are met with these mighty armies, and the Jews thoroughly defeat them. Moses leads them in battle. The king of Sichon, the king Og, king of Bashan and Sichon, the king of the Amorites, the king of the Amorites. So people are afraid of the Jews. And so one of the neighboring nations, which the Jews had no designs even of passing through their territory, it wasn't their quarrel, but they hire this wizard, this soothsayer, Bilam, who was on par with Moses in terms of his spiritual prowess and dark, evil prophecy ability. And they hire him to curse the Jews. And it's one of the most dramatic and beautiful stories in the Torah. He wants to curse, but out of his mouth comes blessings prophecies and praises, immortalized in the Torah, immortalized in our daily prayers. We quote them every single day. And here's the quote we quote every single day, every morning, before we begin our prayers. Children, it's one of the first things children learn in Cheder. You might have learned this in Cheder. Matovo alecha Yaakov, Mishkenosecha Yisrael. How beautiful are your tents, O Jacob, referring to the Jewish people. Your dwelling place is Israel. What's he talking about? How beautiful are your tents? He wasn't talking about the physical structure per se. This is what he meant. He says, because your openings don't face each other. You respect each other. Respect each other's privacy. Boundaries, walls are very significant. There's healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries means I respect your privacy, your dignity. I don't gloat, I don't expose that which you don't want to be exposed. That's what respect means. I don't look, I don't talk about that which you want to keep concealed. It's private, it's yours. When you share and invite me to share something in your life, then that's wonderful. But where there's something in your life, whether it's my wife or family member, community member, there's the healthy border that needs to be in place. Don't look where you're not invited. Don't expose it. That's what Bilam is praising the Jews, that their tents were pitched in such a way that the openings didn't face each other. A person might argue, why should there be borders and boundaries? If you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're nothing to be embarrassed of. Expose it, let me see. No, says Torah. Not because of the concern he may be doing something wrong. He might be, and that's none of your business either. But even his or her inherent dignity needs to be respected. The message, don't look, don't talk about, don't expose that which is private and personal and not shared by that person with the world. We may not share it. We don't have that license to share something which is private in somebody else's life. That's what walls and borders mean. So this is the lesson, at least one of the lessons, that we need to learn from this tragedy, and not to be moved by it is to be cruel. Is to be cruel because it renders the tragedy just happenstance, and it doesn't affect us, make the world a better place. We have to make the world a better place in ourselves because of this tragedy. We need to look at what happened and say, how does it apply to me in my life? Healthy structures, healthy walls, healthy boundaries. There are places that we ought not go. And in fact, the holier a place, the more zealously it must be guarded and nurtured. The Holy of Holies, the holiest place on earth, and the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. No one ever saw inside. Only the high priest on Yom Kippur, on behalf of all the people. The more sacred something is, the more it's protected, the less it's exposed. And that's true of the physical body, friends. Let me just share this with you. Modesty. The body is covered, not because we're ashamed of it, embarrassed of the body, but because it's sacred. It's not flaunted. It's not casual. The Torah is our most sacred object. We don't keep it on display. It's covered in a mantle. It's put in an ark, closed, and when taken out with the greatest reverence and respect and tenderness and love. And I want you to know, when we open the Torah, we only open just enough to read and then close. It's never left exposed for a millisecond longer than it's required for its reading. For that would be disrespectful. That would make it casual. And the body, the physical body, creation of God is sacred. It's not casually exposed, even at home. The body is revealed when it is in the most sacred and loving way to another person. In the deepest union and privacy with the ultimate walls of protection. Holiness thrives in the sanctum of privacy. That's respect. Respect someone's privacy, starting with their own body. Respect your own body. But I also mean, as I spoke earlier, of people's feelings, of people's stories. If it's their private story, it's their private story. We don't have the license. It's an invasion. It's tearing down a wall to share it, to publicize it, to expose it. We look for the good. That's what we have to see in our fellow. See the good, the negative, the private, unless they share it with me for whatever reason, it's protected. They should feel safe. People should feel safe with us. Healthy walls, healthy structures. There are many lessons to be derived. I'm just sharing one of them. But in the general sense, friends, it's Friday. We're going to this fast day, this tragic time. Each one of us just to look into our own personal lives and see where we can fix a breach, where something's fallen down and needs to be put back, or something was never there, and I need to make that structure, that edifice. I've got to create Shabbos. Like my Shabbos just blurs with the weekday. There's no boundary. It ought not. It ought not. There's got to be the boundary between the profane and the holy, the respect. The weekday is its mission. Shabbos is its day. It's a different experience. Shabbos is coming into the inner sanctum. That's where we are on Shabbos. So there's the Kiddush Friday night. The candles are going to light. There's the Havdalah Saturday night that separates, that declares the distinction between Shabbos and the weekday. This is a healthy wall, friends, a healthy, intimate place that Shabbos surrounds us with. So we need to look at our Shabbos. How sacred, how protected is it? Are we inviting others? Are we inviting others into our Shabbos, into our homes? Now, I said in my email to you, we talk about, it's all connected, last week's discussion about what's happening with some segments of our youth. And it's not confined to a small percentage, friends, namely embarrassed with Israel and even embarrassed with the Holocaust. Embarrassed because, well, we were different. That's why we invited it. Tearing down the walls. If we just tear down all the walls between people and gender and it would all be wonderful. No, tearing down the walls is tragedy. We need to respect our differences, the dignity of difference. So it all ties in tragically with what we're facing quite literally today. But I told you, I'm going to share with you an incredible story that I read, reported in the newspaper, or it's a newspaper, it's a website, and the name of, just not the Jerusalem Report, it's called Israel Today. I just want to get it up and read it to you. Now, I'm going to tell you, some people might find this disturbing. So I beg you to, let's go deeper. Let's go deeper here, because the external part of the story is like, what? It's a very deep challenge. But this is the answer to reaching our youth. This is the answer to, it's a paradoxical answer, but it's the answer to, well, here's the story. My brother had sent it to me, the link. And I'll find it now. And I want to read this to you, at least in part. So it comes from the Times of Israel. And it's the story of a Jewish girl, University of Madison, co-president, listen to her name is, well, I can tell you her name, it's all over the news, Nesha Ruther. She's the co-president of Students for Justice in Palestine. She'd been on Birthright. She'd been to Israel. And she is advocating university divest from Israel and companies that do business with Israel. Brought up in a fairly traditional Jewish home. I mean, their parents sent them Birthright. Let me hear a story. She's from Maryland, Tacoma, Maryland. She majored in English, gender women's studies, and Jewish studies. Came to Madison on full scholarship. Grew up in a traditional home, Reform congregation, where pro-Israel attitudes were the norm. Bat mitzvah in Jerusalem. And she's now the president of Justice for Palestinians in Israel and promoting BDS. Typical of the young person that I described last week. Here's the shocking thing, friends. Here's the headline. The pro-Palestinian anti-Israel campus leader was also a regular at Chabad. Here's a picture, if you can see it. This is the Chabad Shliach, Rabbi Mendel Matasov. Rabbi Mendel Matasov, and a picture of Nesha. Here she is with Rabbi Matasov and his wife and one of their children. So this was picked up by the Times of Israel. They wrote this article because how is this possible? That this girl is coming to Chabad Friday night for dinners and she feels comfortable here. So they interview her and interview the rabbi. And although she knows very well where the rabbi stands, and he knows where she stands, and at this point in their relationship, the rabbi says, we're not talking about Israel yet. We will, but we're not talking about it yet. What has happened here? The answer is, friends, what she's found in Chabad, she never experienced anywhere, even on her trip to Israel. And that's quite simply the soul, the neshama of Judaism. The unconditional love that we have for our fellow Jew that cuts deeper than attitudes, behavior, politics, philosophy, or even religion. A Jew who claims to have adopted another religion, and in their mind they have, for us, this person is still Jewish. And when you touch that neshama, I can promise you it's going to happen, if not today, tomorrow. It'll take time. Her neshama is being warned. She says, if you read the article, and thank you, Ricky, for just posting it, you can easily find it, Times of Israel and Chabad and Madison campus. You'll find it in 2 clicks, or in 1 click, 1 search. This is the answer, friends. Here, you see, friends, I spoke about healthy walls. There are unhealthy walls that have to come down. There are unhealthy walls, the walls that divide one Jew from another. Because we don't see eye to eye politically or spiritually, or religiously, or therefore I can't. If we can't be friends, I can't have you at my Shabbos table. I won't engage with you. I won't talk to you. I will cancel you. The teacher told me that she was canceled at one of our Jewish schools because she did. I think I told this to you. A teacher in a Jewish school in Montreal. She was canceled on social media by someone in the school, and this is one of our Jewish schools, because she dared say an opinion that under Trump there wouldn't have been the Gaza war, and Israel was the Middle East, the world was a safer place. And they were lining up to make peace. That's a fact. It has legitimacy. You could disagree. To be canceled because you disagree, this is not the Jewish way. And this Chabad house in Madison, I know the father's my friend. The father, the shliach there, is the senior shliach, Yonah Matasov, to Madison, and his son is now the shliach on campus. Second generation shlichim already. He went out, when I went out the shlichus in the late 70s, early 80s, he went out a little bit older than me, the father. So this is such a quintessential, it's Chabad story, but really should be the Jewish story of all of us. Touch the soul, connect on the deepest level, warm the Jewish heart. The debates we can have later, and we'll discuss it. But those debates have to be firmly planted in the honest soil of humility and unconditional love. And then we will discuss, and the branches will grow, and the flowers will bud and blossom, and that Jewish spark will burst into glorious flame. This is the answer. This is the answer to reaching our youth, to reaching our fellow Jew. It's the call of the hour. Let me remind you, our sages say, why was Jerusalem destroyed and we were exiled? The temple destroyed, referring to the second temple and the long, bitter exile which we find ourselves, God willing, on the threshold of redemption, but still in exile. What caused it all then? Our sages tell us because of intolerance of each other. Intolerance of each other. In the words of our sages, unwarranted hatred. So what's the answer to unwarranted hatred? Unwarranted love. I don't love you because we share the same view, because I enjoy your company, because you give me, you make me feel, make me. That's not love. I love because of you, that's all. Not you give what you give me, but because of you. And you know what? Because you and I at the core, we're one. So I love myself because of my talents and virtues. That's why I love myself. I love myself because I exist, I am. There's no because I am. That's why I have to love our fellow Jew, because you are. That's it. Because you're Jewish, that's all. And if that core connection is there, the conscious and the intellectual, the emotional, the behavioral, the religious, the spiritual, it'll all harmonize in the end. But that's the foundation. This girl, I give her time, Chabad, she's continued going there. She's going to warm. She's going to see Israel in a whole new light. She never saw Israel for what it is. The Israel she was taught was political and historical and cultural. What she was never exposed to was the soul of Israel, the sanctity, the holiness. And she's going to feel that in Chabad, even if they don't even talk about it. Because when you start to feel your own soul, you're going to feel the soul of Israel, the soul of Torah, the soul of a fellow Jew. It's just a natural response. That's what our youth didn't get. Israel is not because of the 1948 vote in the UN and the world. It's not because of the Holocaust that the world owes it to us. No, it's sacred. It's soulful. It's granted by the Almighty. And it's a decision that the Almighty made before created the world, and it's eternal. And it's a place from where we spread light to the world. It's all part of the divine mission of the Jewish people. It's all neshama, it's all soul. She was never told that, never experienced it. And she's starting to in Chabad. Coming to the Friday night, the Kiddush, hearing the rabbi's words of Torah, Hasidus, what's he doing? He's sharing the soul of Judaism, the songs that they sing, songs from the neshama, from the soul. This is warming her. This is stirring her. This is the message to us, my dearest friends. So let us hope and pray, and more important, let us do something about it, that this Sunday we won't be fasting. Because Hashem has promised us that when Mashiach comes, the fast days will be transformed into days of the greatest celebration and rejoicing. God knows it's long overdue. We will not stop our prayers for those still trapped. Unthinkable to think that what the ones that are alive, what they've experienced the last of it's more than 24 hours now. And the heat and the rubble, it's unthinkable, but we need to think about it. So let's continue our prayers, friends. Let's think about all the things we spoke about today. The healthy walls, the unhealthy walls that have to come down, the healthy walls that need to be put up, the walls respecting privacy, the walls respecting sanctity, like Shabbos, the weekday. They're healthy walls, they're healthy boundaries. And tear down the unhealthy walls that divide and separate us. Our hearts open, loving towards our fellow Jew, inviting to our fellow Jew, like the Matasovs at the Chabad of University of Madison. I wish you all a wonderful Shabbos, friends, a good Shabbos, that we hear good news from each other, good news out of Miami, good news all over the world, only blessing revealed, blessing transformation of tears of pain, tears of loss, into tears of joy and union and reunion and celebration and all the good things in a revealed way, and merit Mashiach's coming. Amen. Now, mamish, which means literally now. Amen.
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 Shabbos.
יישר כוח.
Shabbat shalom.